Welcome to room 13.
I'd only been in the apartment for a week when I first noticed the button. The movers had left my boxes in a haphazard pile, and the place still smelled of fresh paint and someone else's life. The building itself was old, a 1920s relic with creaking floors and brass fixtures dulled by decades of fingers. My apartment was on the 7th floor of the Crestwood, a squat, unassuming structure in a part of town where the streetlights flickered and the sidewalks cracked like broken promises. It wasn't home yet, but it was mine, and I was determined to make it work. The elevator was one of those ancient contraptions with a sliding gate you had to pull shut yourself. It rattled like a dying animal every time it moved, and the mirrored walls inside were scratched and cloudy, reflecting a distorted version of myself. Too tall, too thin, my eyes just a fraction too large. I didn't like looking at it, but I couldn't help it. Every morning I'd step in, pull the gate closed, and jab the button for the lobby. That's when I saw it, a button I hadn't noticed before, tucked beneath the others, labeled B13. The building only had 2 basement levels, B1 and B2, for storage and the laundry room. I'd seen the floor plan when I signed the lease, no B13. I figured it was a relic, like the chipped tiles in the lobby or the faded wallpaper in the halls. Old buildings have quirks, right? I pressed it once out of curiosity, but nothing happened. The elevator didn't move. The button didn't even light up. I shrugged it off and went about my day, but it kept showing up, not every time. Some mornings, the button was there, glinting faintly in the dim elevator light. Other times, it was gone, replaced by a blank metal panel. I started paying attention, and I noticed a pattern. It only appeared at night, after 10 p.m., when the building grew quiet and the hum of the city outside faded to a distant murmur. I mentioned it to the super, a grizzled man named Carl who smelled of cigarettes and motor oil. He laughed, said I was seeing things, and told me to stop pressing buttons that didn't exist. Elevators in these old places, he said, they've got minds of their own. One night, I couldn't sleep. The city was too quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like it's hiding something. I'd been unpacking boxes, trying to make the apartment feel less like a stranger's house, when I gave up and decided to take a walk. It was past midnight when I stepped into the elevator, my reflection staring back at me from the warped mirrors. The B13 button was there, glowing faintly, almost pulsing. I hesitated, my finger hovering over it. Carl's warning echoed in my head, but so did the restless itch of curiosity. What was the worst that could happen? It wouldn't work, just like before. I pressed it. The elevator lurched, harder than usual, and the lights flickered. My stomach dropped as the car descended, the familiar groan of cables replaced by a low, resonant hum that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. The numbers above the door didn't change. No B1, no B2, just a blank display. The air grew colder, sharper, like I was breathing in a winter night. When the doors opened, I wasn't in the basement. I wasn't anywhere I recognized. The hallway stretched out before me, long and narrow, with walls that seemed to lean inward, just slightly, like they were watching me. The floor was tiled in a black and white checkerboard pattern, but the tiles didn't line up right. Some were too large, others too small, creating a dizzying effect that made my steps feel unsteady. The air smelled faintly of mildew and something sweeter, like overripe fruit. There were doors along the hall, wooden and unmarked, each with a brass knob that gleamed too brightly for the dim, flickering lights overhead. I took a step forward, and the elevator doors slid shut behind me with a soft clang. I turned, but there was no call button, no panel, just a blank wall where the elevator should have been. My heart kicked up a notch. but I told myself to stay calm. This was just a hidden floor, some forgotten part of the building. I'd find a stairwell, get back to my apartment, and laugh about it in the morning. I started walking. The hallway seemed to stretch longer with every step, the doors multiplying, their brass knobs glinting like eyes. I tried one, but it was locked. Another was the same. The third opened, and I froze. Beyond the door was a room that looked like my childhood bedroom, down to the faded baseball poster on the wall and the crack in the window from when I'd thrown a ball too hard. But I hadn't lived there in 20 years, and that house was hundreds of miles away. I stepped inside, and the air shifted, heavy with the scent of my mother's lavender perfume. I heard laughter, my own, younger, echoing from somewhere deeper in the room. But when I turned, the door was gone, replaced by a blank wall. I stumbled back into the hallway, my pulse hammering. The hallway had changed. The tiles were now a deep, glossy black, reflecting my face in a way that made my features blur, like a photo left out in the rain. The walls pulsed faintly, as if breathing, and I could hear whispering, soft, overlapping voices that seemed to come from the air itself. They weren't speaking words I could understand, but they carried a weight, a truth I didn't want to face. I kept walking, faster now, trying doors at random. One opened to a kitchen I'd never seen, with a table set for a dinner I didn't remember attending. Another led to a park at dusk, the swings creaking in a wind I couldn't feel. Each door showed me something that felt like mine but wasn't. Memories that didn't belong to me yet felt truer than my own. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, forming words I could almost grasp. You're not you. You've never been you. I shook my head, trying to block it out, but the voices followed me, weaving through the air like threads. The hallway looped impossibly, bringing me back to where I'd started, or so I thought. The tiles were different now, cracked and stained, and the walls were covered in faint, handwritten scrawls, names and dates I didn't recognize. My name was there too, written over and over, but the handwriting wasn't mine. I don't know how long I wandered. Time didn't feel right down there. Minutes stretched into hours, or maybe it was the other way around. My phone was useless. No signal, no clock, just a blank screen reflecting my distorted face. I found a door that looked different, heavier, with a faint red glow seeping from the edges. The whispering stopped when I touched the knob, replaced by a low, rhythmic chanting that made my skin crawl. I didn't want to open it, but my hand moved anyway, like it wasn't mine anymore. Beyond the door was a vast, cavernous space, its walls lost in shadow. The floor was a mirror, perfectly smooth, reflecting a version of me that wasn't quite right. Older, hollow-eyed, with a smile that wasn't mine. In the center of the room was an elevator, identical to the one in my building, but its doors were open, revealing nothing but darkness. The chanting grew louder, coming from the shadows, and I realized it was my voice or something like it, repeating my name like a prayer. I stepped toward the elevator, my reflection moving out of sync, its smile widening as I got closer. The air was thick, pressing against my chest, and the chanting became a scream, a chorus of voices that weren't mine, but knew me better than I knew myself. I reached the elevator and looked inside. The darkness wasn't empty. It was alive, shifting, full of shapes that flickered like half-remembered dreams. And then I saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the darkness, wearing my face, but not my eyes. Its eyes were empty, black, endless. "You're not supposed to be here," it said, in my voice, "but you've always been here." I stumbled back, but the floor tilted, pulling me toward the elevator. The figure reached out, its hand cold as it brushed my arm, and I saw flashes of a life I hadn't lived. Me, but older, younger, broken, whole, in places I'd never been, doing things I'd never done. The voices screamed louder, telling me I wasn't real, that I was a shadow, a reflection, a mistake. I tore myself away and ran, the floor cracking beneath me, the walls collapsing into impossible angles, the chanting chasing me like a storm. I don't know how I found the hallway again, or how I found a door that led back to the elevator. I slammed the gate shut and stabbed the button for the 7th floor, my home. The elevator lurched upward, the hum returning, the air warming. When the doors opened, I was back in my building, the familiar faded wallpaper and chipped tiles greeting me like an old friend. I stumbled to my apartment, locked the door, and sat in the dark, trying to convince myself it was a dream. But the next morning, the mirror in my bathroom showed a reflection that wasn't quite mine. My eyes were too dark, my smile too sharp. And when I took the elevator to the lobby, the B13 button was there, glowing, even in the daylight. I didn't press it. I haven't pressed it since. But sometimes at night, I hear the elevator moving on its own, descending, and I hear my name whispered through the walls, in a voice that sounds like mine, but isn't. I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know if I ever did. But I know one thing. I'm not alone in this apartment, and whatever's down there on B13, it's waiting for me to come back.